Welcome back to the Cantina. We hope you have a drink in hand this week because we are hosting a honorary tribute and toasting a legend to start off the pod this week.
Yeah.
And that is, this week we lost James Earl Jones, September 9th. Just a huge tragedy for everyone who's a Star Wars fan, but also it's nice to remember his career and talk about him as a person and talk about him as a performer and just share our thoughts about James Earl Jones, because it just, I don't know, he's been with me since my childhood and he's sort of shaped my youth and my understanding of fiction and cinema and all, you know, he's just such an important figure. And I put a lot, I really raise him up in terms of importance for Star Wars. But he's just kind of the resonant center point, or the resonant sort of keystone of Star Wars for me. And so let's start off by just pouring one out for an absolute legend, James Earl Jones.
Rest in peace, buddy. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously like Darth Vader, like the voice. Yeah. Sorry, my Tuca cat is going off right now.
Yeah.
I think of like Field of Dreams is kind of like the first movie that pops in my head where I first fell in love with him as an actor. I was like young when that movie came out and loved baseball, and I just adored his character and his role in that movie. He's been in so many, but that was it. What other movies do you guys think about when you think of James Earl Jones?
Mr. Myrtle from The Sandlot is just a huge one for me. I mean, that was very formative for me. I'm a huge Conan fan. Like, I read
Conan. You cannot.
Conan. His Thulsa Doom is just, I don't know, unbelievable. Like one of the greatest. It like a lot of people associate James Earl Jones with Darth Vader, which we'll talk about. But his portrayal as Thulsa Doom in Conan is actually quite special, and another great villain in the pantheon of sort of like villains in cinema.
Yeah. I mean, I always think of like he was in the. It's really funny. I never really put it together, but he's in the Jack Ryan movies, like Clear and Present Danger from the early '90s, right? With Harrison Ford, which I totally forgot to. And then probably I'm trying to think, like, the first time I became aware of him in my like somewhat childhood was Coming to America. With Eddie Murphy,
King Jofar.
That came out when I was 8, and I probably saw it when I was like 10. I probably shouldn't have seen it when I was 10, but I did. You know, so like it's one of those things that he was always there. I mean, cannot sleep on, you know, just Lion King, like like one of the best voice roles ever. But one thing I came across that I want to spend a couple minutes on is that I just after his passing, I finally became aware that I was well aware of who James Earl Jones was and that voice well before I saw him as Darth Vader, which I think there's something that we have not as a culture talked about, the fact that there's some type of magic happening with this. And that is, do you know James Earl Jones was the first celebrity guest on Sesame Street?
I did not know that.
Oh, that's very cool.
In 1969, I want to say, the first season, he came on and did the alphabet. And all he does is just go through the alphabet. And during that first season, actually prior to the first season when they're doing a lot of testing, he recorded a lot of things. Those segments played on and on and on and on all the way through the 80s. So there's a good chance all of us who like kind of grew up watching Sesame Street was exposed to James Earl Jones' voice. So I think there's something going on with this idea of like hearing that voice and then hearing it as Darth Vader, right? Like this weird, unknowable why it kind of connects with children in some way. The other thing that's really fascinating about that, and I don't want to go too far, but you know, I am your resident social scientist, is it just shows how much of a legend he is. Just doing that one thing where he says the alphabet. And by the way, if you haven't, just go treat yourself to watch that. Just watching James Earl Jones say the alphabet's kind of amazing. My personal favorite is K. Anyway, just watch it. You'll see why. And there's a whole way this is done. And, you know, it's the children's workshop through Sesame Street. They're all about learning, trying to figure out how kids learn. And the way it happens is a letter flashes on the screen next to his head. He says it. He says the letter. Letter disappears. There's a short pause. Next letter comes up. Then he says the letter. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? But it was actually kind of revolutionary. And what they realized is social scientists and psychologists watch kids watch this. and they watched it the first time, and the kids were really engrossed. The second time, the letter would go up, and they would say the letter in James Earl Jones's tone before he said it. And it actually led to this learning style about this idea of like showing something, saying it, and then repeating it. It's called an invitation, just having the letter there before the person says it. It's called the James Earl Jones effect.
Oh wow!
Just like
That's
there's a
cool.
social science like phenomenon named after James Earl Jones.
That's great.
Just, fascinating.
And
That's a little.
it makes a lot of sense
quick
too.
story.
I mean, James Earl Jones like famously had a speech impediment and worked really hard on it, and then became one of the most iconic voices ever. Which is quite a hero's journey.
Yeah. Definitely, I think one of the most distinguished voices in cinema. Just a voice, I think, that just transcends, all of their voices. He's sort of just at the top of the pyramid in terms of when you think about a magnificent, bellowing, voice that just imbues someone or a character with just this powerful presence. I think like just James Earl Jones is right there at the top in terms of thinking about how do we make this character have more gravitas or weight, it's just, he's there. He's right there every time. And, we lost him this week, but, Darth Vader and all the characters he played will live on forever. And I mean, Darth Vader has to be the most recognizable sort of famous villain, impactful villain of all time in cinema. Like I'm looking back and thinking about all the villains in cinema, and I'm just like, I really think Darth Vader is just top tier, so
Absolutely.
sad loss for all of us, but just what a beautiful career and what a magnificent voice.
And I appreciate like he also came around to the importance of the role he played in Star Wars, because there's a long discussion about the fact that he was left off of the credits for original Star Wars, and originally when it came out, he was not credited. And there's a lot of back and forth about it. And he came and I don't know veracity of this, but he spoke to it, so we'll trust that he was telling the truth. Is that he requested not to have he didn't ask for that in the first two movies because he felt like he wasn't important. Like Jimmy, like all he did was like spend an afternoon in a booth doing the voice. That's the way he said about it. And what's fascinating about it is like he came around to how important of a role he played, right? To the level of like just 2 years ago he signed off on the AI use of the Darth Vader voice. And we can talk about AI and a lot of the dangers, but like he signed that contract when he was 90.
Right.
A 90-year-old person is not doing that because they need money, right? Like, I'm guessing. I mean, maybe but I feel like he probably did that for legacy, right? This idea of just like how important that, like, we see other people doing voices in Star Wars, and it works. Like, we see other people doing Anakin's voice, we see other people doing Obi-Wan's voice, and it works. We see it in the video games. The Kira voice is fine. Anytime they give me a non-James Earl Jones Darth Vader,
it's just not the same.
It just doesn't work. You just can't.
It never
get
works.
Close, but it just never works. Yeah.
And there's some voice assisted, I think, work done in Obi-Wan and things like that.
Sure.
Where we're hearing it. It's just I just, when you really do go back and just listen to the original trilogy, you don't even need to watch it. You'll just be enraptured with his performance. And it's actually fascinating that he's not listed on the credits in those films, given that the character's identity is still a secret. And I wonder if he himself knew. I hope he got paid as much salary as like 1 or 2 on the call sheet, because the Vader is just huge in terms of a character. But but nonetheless,
I don't think so.
It's interesting that
but I think
the mystery is sort of kept intact, and maybe he thought artistically that was a good idea as well. So I have no idea, but just I don't know. I just don't think we'll ever get some. I hope we can get more villains like Darth Vader in the future, but that was so unique, that combination of James Earl Jones and David Prowse and just the costume design and it just, I don't know, just that sort of trifecta was just, it's just going to be hard to achieve something like that, I think, in the future. But I'm looking forward to more villains. I'm looking forward to new villains, and hopefully ones that honor the legacy of the potency of Darth Vader and sort of like that menace and that powerful presence. That's actually what I'm hoping for as a Star Wars fan, is we get more of that in a new way, and in more Vader stuff too. I mean, there's a lot untold with Vader that I think it'd be great to do something that's maybe a deep dive into Vader as a sort of like tribute to James Earl Jones would be a fun thing to explore as well. So I'm open to all of it, and I just we lost a legend. It's tough, and it was just like when Ben sent that text, I saw it on my phone. I was like, oh no, the greatest among us, just best stuff, stuff.
He's exquisite, and we're grateful. He's fantastic, and lived a long, full life, and did many great things. Never got on page 6 for anything stupid, I think. So I'm going with that. And great dude. Tough loss, but lived a full life, and now he is one with the Force. So
one last toast, and then we'll head off to the fungal network of Gazian and explore the Star Wars comics and where Star Wars main run is going, which is somewhat of a segue, but I think it's we've been talking about it weeks. We got to cover these comics at some point. So
we got to cover it. I love that segue because ever so often, like, my mind will go like, what if I only saw 1977, A New Hope, and then I read issue 48 or issue 50 of Star Wars comics. I'm just like, it just reminds me of the mental exercise Ben and I did between episodes 5 and 6 when we did the marathon, and we were just like walking around the parking lot trying to recite all of the things that happened in the Star Wars. Like, can you imagine? Like, we were waiting around for episode 6 to start. Like, after that, they had the War of the Bounty Hunters, and then Crimson Reign, and then Dark Droids. Like, we just listed all of the wacky things that happened.
But
and they even nod to that. They nod to that in this episode. He's like, gosh, it's been a long year. There are crazy droids.
I think it's obligatory at this point.
Yeah.
Like we need to talk about the road that we've crossed.
That we've paved here.
Yeah.
For people that aren't reading the comics and don't know, so this is, 48, 49, 50. And 50, this is, as a comic casual, I'm learning, is sort of a magic number in Star Wars comics. But this is taking us up. These are 50 issues between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and takes us right up to Return of the Jedi, and we know the next series is going to be Battle of Jakku, so it'll be after Return of the Jedi. So this is a big deal. We've been waiting a long time to get through all of these. We went through all the issues between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. There was at least 50 issues there. Was it 100?
It might have been 100. It was a lot. It was definitely more than 50.
Yeah.
It was
just in this one run, in this one comic.
It's fun. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, did I get chills when Leia said, "Let's go get Han"? Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear her say the same thing during the War of the Bounty Hunters? Maybe, but it's still like, once you start seeing the track being laid for to return back to the sort of trilogy, the saga films, it's very cool in the comics. That's actually some of my favorite stuff, is when it's leaving a movie, going into unknown territory, and then going back into the sort of like film and the time zone that it needs to enter for the film to take place, essentially. And I love when it plays around the films, and the closer the comics are to the starting and ending points of the films themselves are fascinating. That's why I collect Star Wars comics. It's sort of it's great if you can read those comics that sort of abut the films and then watch the films. It's like the perfect sort of like watch a marathon viewing of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's a fascinating magic trick to watch them try to do this, right? To tell these like really compelling major stories, but remind themselves like we still got to get back here. Yeah. Like we got to get back to rescuing Han. And I feel like what's interesting about this 50 issue arc is how much they did not necessarily lose that thread. Does that make sense? Like, it was always like Han was always mentioned. It's like it reminds me of The Simpsons. Like, where's Poochie? Every time Poochie's not on the screen, somebody should be asking where's Poochie. It's like the last 50 issues. Like every time Han's not on screen, you should be asking where's Han, right? Like which seems true to the characters, right? Like they would be, and the movies do lead this thing. Was just like, why did they have to wait a year to go rescue Han? That's a good question between episodes 5 and 6 of the movies, right? I'm just like, when you think about it, as a kid, I used to go like, what happened? And this entire 50 issue is just like, they kept meaning to, and other things happened.
Yeah.
like Bounty Hunters, Crimson Dawn, Dark Droids.
It took a while for his body to even make it to Jabba's. There was an entire war, like bidding war, and then subsequent war between like all the major like cartels. The droids went rogue and became sentient and evil, and almost became one with the Force, and killed everybody. A bit happened. And then they're like, you know what?
You know what? Retrospectively, I do like War of the Bounty Hunters. Like, I like the I like the idea that Kira hosted an auction for the Hansicle, and
Yeah, the Hansicle. Yep.
and because it's poetic, right? It's kind of like she was sort of left to fend for herself as Han escaped to freedom, and now he is trapped, as in carbonite, and she is free to host this auction of some kind. I thought that was kind of a fun reversal, and extremely poetic and well done. And just any storyline that's Kira centric to me is just always a win. And like a Kira standalone series or a Kira TV prestige show like that, I welcome any of that stuff. I would love to sort of see a Kira centric.
Yeah,
story.
and not to open the door to Outlaws, but like we don't have to go into a whole thing about that. But she's prominent in that as well.
Yeah.
Right. So like they like this character. They like using this character. It's a dynamic character.
They really did right by Kira, I think, in all of this through the bounty hunters and all that. Like beautiful character arc for her. I mean, humble beginnings, gets dragged into the criminal underworld, but ends up, first of all taking it over. She gets through, her own, like all the bosses that she had to, and a Sith Lord, and somehow takes it over. And then, it takes it from a Sith Lord. And then expands and takes over the galaxy and has a whole, spy system in every level of the whole galaxy, whether you're a criminal syndicate or you're the Empire or you're the Rebellion. Like, there are Crimson Dawn people there. And, she treated her people well for the most part. And then, towards the end, and then she took a swipe at the Emperor, which was fantastic. Like, she tried to take down the Sith herself, which was amazing. And she had a really good plan, and it almost worked, and it didn't, and everything fell apart. And then, but she got her, this is that ending we had talked about for Ben Solo, right? Where she really just got cast aside or, sent off into, not purgatory, but, exile. She really just got exiled, and then her character lives on. It's a great story. And Outlaws is a great companion piece for this 50-issue arc. It really, it's the same time. Mm-hmm. It follows the same timeline.
It's post-auction, right? It's post-War of the Bounty Hunters. Many times.
It's post-auction. They mention it. They mention that she hosted an auction that didn't go great.
That's right.
The thing is,
was there.
once again, yes, right.
I wonder if we go back and look at a panel if there was any, thought to put them in. I don't.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Probably timing-wise wouldn't work out, but you never know.
Jalen and ND9 are there at the auction.
Yes.
ND5, right?
But
ND9.
ND9.
ND5.
Sorry, I don't want to be all.
You just logged off. I played 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm saying ND9. Right. It could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's.
Believe so. But I will say that
I'm looking this up just because I need to know the character name. It's too cool.
But I appreciate the fact that the writers of the game are are adding that stuff in. I'm just what we know this game takes place between 5 and 6. What happened in the comics, and it doesn't take a lot, but there's there, and just doing that, it just feels like part of the universe. Whoa! Apparently Ben was right, and Grant's really angry about it. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Crimson Reign was the most compelling part of this time period, and they're the most compelling part in the game too. They're really a fascinating. If you've read this comic and you play this game, suddenly these decisions that Kira's making, there's subtext to it. Grant and I were talking about this before you hopped on, Adam, but there's definitely they makes a decision, and Kay's really frustrated with Kira, but you're she's oh yeah, I'm this she has this front as this big bad criminal gangster overlord, and she has to play that, but that's her Bruce Wayne. Her real her Batman is that she's trying to take down the Sith and the Empire. That's her real thing, and so she's sort of playing both games at the same time. I mean, that's awesome.
He is ND5.
Okay. Now we know.
I was confused.
Yeah, so that's a good kind of overview. Do you want to jump into the specific issues themselves? So there's 3 issues, but there's really a 2-issue arc, 80 or 50, 48 and 49, and then 50 is a standalone, which we can talk a bit about. But I really enjoyed the Path of Darkness the 2-issue plot, which was basically
the Dust of Alderaan.
And this is one of the things I really enjoyed that in the comics, just kind of fill people in. Alderaan lives as a fleet of ships, basically. I love that idea. It's very Battlestar Galactica, the new version of Battlestar Galactica. This idea of like this caravan kind of going through the cosmos, and I just love the fact that they are still hunted. They feel hunted for obvious reasons. They're still trying to survive. It's interesting and a very relevant story, and they're just kind of going out there, and the you can tell when you're reading these two issues, basically they needed to tie a bow on that subplot a little bit. I think they did a really good job of also pulling it into, like, I love Leia's whole thing of just like, I'm all of these things, and I know I need to go blow up a Death Star, but I really want to save Han, and I really want to save my people. Yeah. And Luke just going, well, I think you need to do those things because you're distracted. Like, it's a very Jedi move of just like, these are not selfish acts because you are not a good leader right now until you take care of these things. So yeah, it's just a nice little Luke Leia moment.
Yeah, the Alderaan stuff is fantastic. Because it is such a, I mean, it's just like she just watched like her whole planet die and her parents and all those, like, and it's like, okay, they're like, yeah, we can still bring that in, and it's like totally relevant, this far later. And I will say it's kind of cool after this, what is canon. So through these, and I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but they, they are this caravan. They decide to disband and go live their lives, the Alderaanians. And they're like, until the Empire is dead, like, we're gone. But it is canon in Aftermath. It was just like a throwaway line. But the Alderaanians built a space station for themselves out of the wreckage of the Death Star. As just like an FU to the Empire after the Emperor fell. They ended up pulling like a hub together for themselves out of like
the survivor fleet, I think they're called. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they were the survivor fleet in this, but then it became like they actually made like a stable like space station out of the thing, which is I couldn't help but think about.
It's super cool. It's a good thing they didn't take the part that had a really important Sith dagger in it, or else it would have like foiled the entire plot of the Resistance. But anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
That was convenient.
Well, it had to be the stuff.
Well, that's the second one. Though.
I guess that's still in space, right? They weren't going to haul it off a planet.
And it's a good thing it was a lot bigger than the first one. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to throw that little synergy in there.
No, I love that.
Yeah. I really do like Leia in these issues. I think Leia really is a standout character in this Path of Light sort of two-parter before the finale. And I like the whole like Imperial officer Zara. Like, I like the villain, the foil in this.
Yeah, she comes back. She was a scary villain earlier on in this series. Yeah. I had forgot where they left it. I'm glad they gave a flashback.
She's like, you left me there. Yeah, I forgot too.
Yeah, same.
And everything.
Yeah. Like, who is this now again?
Yeah.
But yeah, super scary. Scary in this, just like stabs Leia through the shoulder because she can.
Leia gets to fight her. Though. I was like, this is cool. I'd like to see sort of do battle because she's complete badass in A New Hope, which is just like firing the blaster. You just want Leia more action sequences.
She likes to scrap. She's scrappy.
Yeah, she's good. She's good at that, and I feel like we'll talk about issue 50 when we get there. I feel like this is even a better send off of Luke, in a way. Between I feel like we got to in this issue, we get to the Luke that walks into Jabba's palace at the beginning of episode 6, because like he has the confidence, but he's not cocky. He knows what he's doing. Like, he is just there to bide Leia time. Like, that moment of just like, he's a Jedi Knight. In this issue, he's a Jedi Knight. He's a great counsel to Leia. He then is just there, like, he gets to use his lightsaber. Like, the fight, they do this like quick cut scene fight between him and Zara, and it's just like no contest.
Yeah.
Right? Luke is just like swatting her stuff away, parrying her basically, and trying not to kill her, and then lets her go. I just love that moment of just lets her go at the end, and he's just like, as a very Jedi Knight, of like, well, maybe she learned a lesson. She immediately turns around and tries to kill them, and Leia doesn't want to take the shot, and Luke's basically like, you got to take the shot now. Like we gave her a chance.
Yeah.
And it's a very, it's a very Jedi move of just like, yes, just, I'm consider myself a, not a dyed-in-the-wool pacifist, but a very fairly pacifistic person. But there's a time when you gotta blow up a ship.
Yeah.
Right. And I liked that moment. It was a very Jedi moment.
Yeah, that was a good beat. And really telling about who
Luke did blow up a very, very large ship. or battle station. Yeah, so
It's very true.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun to see him like one man wrecking crew.
Yeah.
Luke, I can't get enough of that. Like the same Luke we saw pretty much in Mandalorian. And yeah, I love that. And he's like, well, got to do what I got to do. He really did pick up some pointers from that book and from his time in the Gazian mushroom fields.
That's the whole thing. Is Return of the Jedi Luke is so poised and seems like he's been on a spirit quest for like the last year, and for Sewell to sort of add this mushroom planet into the mix makes perfect sense to me. You know, like it makes absolutely perfect sense that's sort of the Luke we get. Is this? That's kind of the Luke that I thought would persist post the original trilogy. Is this almost like it's sort of like a guru-esque character that has sort of like been through all these trials and tribulations in this sort of Gazian mushroom world and sort of like seen it all, you know, and like there's nothing
is unfazed.
Unfazed is perfect. And that word alone is just sort of like perfect for Luke. But again, Return of the Jedi, we see a fun arc with the character where he starts poised and then he sort of unravels, right? Like he gives into his anger towards the end of the movie, and it's sort of like there's still lessons to be learned, right, throughout all your life. There's not you never sort of transcend truly. You're always susceptible to bad decision making, and you have to, every decision you make has to be, you know, a choice that you think that's thoroughly, you know, thought about and made resolutely to do the good thing, the right thing. And Luke, I think Luke has a wonderful arc through all the storytelling so far, but just very cool to add this sort of fungal network planet into the mix, because I'm like, that perfectly surmises basically his attitude in Return of the Jedi. He's been to this kind of a world essentially and seen so many different visions.
Yeah. All right. So since we're moving on to issue 50, which is like, we're going to talk about a lot, but I feel like we're going to spend a lot of time on this fungal network. So we saw this, I don't know what, 10 issues before, something like that.
Yes,
I can't
correct.
remember,
Should we just
it was a while
describe it
ago.
for Grogu?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets to a planet that's made up of a bunch of mushrooms. And when you fall into it, basically this fungal network scans your brain, makes a copy of you, and leaves you in there. If you escape, so be it. Some people die in there, but basically if you're in there, you can commune with all the people up until the moment they entered the fungal network.
Yeah, or died.
Or left. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And so 50 or 10 issues ago, he falls in. I don't remember why. He meets Elzar Mann, which is really cool. I like their conversation. Elzar Mann kind of talks to him a bit about the High Republic. Luke leaves with one of the sacred Jedi texts, right?
Correct. Yes.
Is like the fungal network basically gives him, someone took it with them that gives it to him. So the conceit of this issue 50, which is like your typical end of a run comic series, he's telling a story to Kylo Ren.
Yes.
Ben Solo.
And Ben Solo.
Ben Solo at the time.
Right, at the time. On the path, I think, because of the timing, on the path to becoming Kylo Ren. I think already in contact with Snoke, I think, at this moment.
Yeah, in timeline.
Pretty close, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's very
about
loyal.
He's about to go through his trials.
Yeah, Luke says he's almost ready for the trials. So,
which he doesn't, right? He never goes to the trials. He's not a knight, right?
It's been so long since we read that Kylo Ren series. I want to say he was
actually
actually taking them when he snapped and killed everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in my headcanon, I think this is before the Rise of Kylo Ren comic books, because to me, it's like he's very adherent to his uncle at this point, and I just don't see any of that Rise of Kylo Ren behavior yet. The Snoke on the space station sort of I don't know if that's happening.
A Maxine station.
The Maxine station. Thank you.
I love that they took a moment to just have listen, just like Anakin Skywalker is not just Darth Vader, Ben Solo is not just Kylo Ren, and I'm glad that they took a moment to just have him not be pouty and mean-spirited, just like showing him as a good Padawan learner, calling him master, having fun banner, very much like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Asking questions.
Being thoughtful and snarky and fun, and I really like Ben Solo, the character, very, very much, and so I'm glad they gave us just some of that. Fun plot device. It was just
it's a good it's a good framing device.
I was gasped when I saw that it was going to be a Ben Solo sort of intro and a sort of that the narrative device of Luke telling Ben a story, and I was like, oh my goodness, we're going there, we're doing it. This is special territory in comics, actually. You know what I mean? Like when you open the comic and you read the crawl, and then you move into the first pages and you see like some of the devices they're doing, and this one being like we're using Ben Solo. I was just like, what? This is awesome. Like I just want more Ben Solo stuff, right? And so like this is very cool, and I relished in all of this, and I really really liked just some of the messaging of don't become the darkness, you're trying to fight or whatever, like don't embrace the darkness, don't
there's a lot of
don't use the darkness to fight the darkness.
Don't use the darkness.
There's a lot of great messaging in this. Here's where I got knocked a little bit off on this, which is it's just my brain, the way it works. So Luke now has the ability to go to Gaznian anytime he wants, as long as he ties a tether around his belt,
right, and
talk to
countless Jedi.
Generations of Jedi. And it's just weird to me. Like, this planet's got to get blown up at some point, right? Because like that's like, why aren't we always there? Like, why isn't Luke always there? And I don't know. Maybe by the time like we meet Luke again, maybe he's been going there for 30 years and he's talked to every single person he possibly can. But it's such a superpower. Right. It's like an OP moment. I mean, but the thing is, I love what it leads to. Yeah. So I'm not angry at it. Just I got questions.
I want to give them credit. I mean, they tell you it is dangerous, and you see all the dead bodies because of that. It is seductive. It is like heroin. It's like, why not just stand there and learn forever and then die? Like
right. But he's got a tether and a timer, so he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful about it. But yeah, I mean, but it's already like the planet calls him greedy. It's like, hey, what more do you want from us? We gave you the book.
Yeah, maybe that's a good point. Maybe he goes and they just stop.
Because it is.
They're like, no, we got nothing else to say to you.
It's kind of a hive mind consciousness.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
Yes,
yeah.
The
mushrooms themselves are sort of like at the real sort of controller of everything.
They have an agenda, right?
Yes.
Like that's why they gave him the book, and that in itself is fascinating. So I think it's something that it's a privilege and you don't want to abuse it.
Also, like signing up for a nightmare. Like, do you want to dive into a nightmare every day? Like, that sounds terrifying. Like the whole Aslan Rel and Lorsan Tekka like turning into ghouls and things like that, or whatever. Whatever. Aslan Rel, I think, turns into a straight up ghoul like a couple times and like attacks.
Yeah.
And it's pretty terrifying. Like, it seems like they're trying to instill this sort of sense of horror and sublime horror in the fungal network.
Yeah,
it affects you physically too. It's like it gets under your skin. Yes. It's gross.
It like grows out of your nose and like it grows out of your ears. Like the fungus sort of invades your body. It's really creepy. Like the artwork is astoundingly good. I thought it just in terms of like little mushrooms coming out of Luke's nose and ears and stuff as he's trying the sea of mushrooms. Very cool stuff. But yeah, you guys want to talk about Aslan Rel? Do you want to talk about the nameless, or I guess the nameless get named in this, which is pretty cool.
Shown, right?
Yeah.
Shri Karai, which is from that nursery rhyme.
Right?
Yeah, the Shri Karai, which is like that's actually a pretty fantastic.
Pretty sweet name.
Yeah,
good, love it.
So Aslan Rel has been introduced in Phase 3, and he is a Jedi that used the darkness to fight the darkness. He fell to the dark side in his pursuit to stop the Nameless. But Yoda went and grabbed him and brought him back into the Council to try and help fight the Nameless in a bold stroke. So we've been seeing him do some terrible things, and not really anything beneficial, but like providing some weird counsel to Bel Zettifar and others in the High Republic. But yeah, that's who Luke talks to here. That's the avatar for the Gazian planet.
Yeah, and then we get Lorsan Tekka after that, which is pretty cool. Like that, and is that like that's a things to come sort of situation there, where it's like, you will meet this person, and you will, discover countless, relics and things like that of the Jedi together, and it's interesting. I'm with you, Ben. I feel like the mushrooms themselves sort of have plans here, or like this is all one. It seems like it's a lot of Jedi lore, and it seems a lot of fate and destiny, but it's really almost these mushrooms are enhanced by the Force and sort of showing him things, and he's acting with things. But it's got to be just the sort of the actual fungus itself, right? Like that's just where I'm at. Yeah.
You can get the individual knowledge, but it's almost like the planet absorbs all the knowledge and doles it out as it wishes.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but Aslan Rel, fantastic character. He has no eyes. I think he has gouged out his own eyes. He's bald, white humanoid, tall, thin, gaunt.
And like you see his, you see him before his transformation too, where he's kind of this handsome young Jedi character. And you're like, wow, that's a fall! Like this guy gouges his own eyes out.
Yep.
It's just it's terrifying.
Yeah. But just always a fascinating conceit to be like someone who chooses the dark, right? Out of the path to hell.
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just gonna go for it. I got a good feeling about this.
All right.
For the greater good.
Yeah. So, anyways, Luke has all those, and then I think then they find the doesn't the fungal network also give him the relic, the Grim.
Yep.
What's it called?
Yeah.
Grim Rose.
Grim Rose.
Yeah. So Grim Rose is the most MacGuffin in MacGuffin history, but it's great for the storytelling. The Grim Rose basically allows you, if you have someone's DNA, will kill them, no matter what. Like that's all. You give it its DNA.
It's a force object, like a force relic, in which it's powered by the force, and it can find people and kill.
It's powered by the force.
Based on if you drip their blood into the box, basically.
Yeah. And what's interesting is Luke kind of talks about later, says it's darkness here, but not of the dark side. Like he says something like that along lines of like, it's not necessarily a dark side relic, but it's dark. All
right. And their immediate thoughts are, let's get Palpatine's blood, get it in this box. We got to go to Naboo. Seeing Naboo, like an Imperial sort of Naboo like was so cool. Just seeing like the Imperial flags and being back there was crazy. And just when they meet the Archivist, who's like, just willingly gives them, like, I thought that was such a fun scene. I thought that was just so well written.
It was so
good.
Sewell's it was just So in this scene, Luke or Lando dresses up as an Imperial, has this whole like I'm gonna like do my Lando stuff and get Palpatine's DNA, and she just sniffs him out immediately. It's just like
the rank stuff.
You can have it.
She calls him lieutenant, but like his insignia on his outfit is not lieutenant.
Captain,
something else. Captain. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I thought that was so fun.
She sniffs him out immediately.
Yeah.
But is that just like, no, you can have it because he's a monster and needs to go. I love that. Like not everyone who works within a evil empire buys into the evil empire, right? Like some people are just there because of their circumstances.
That was crazy when they see all of the people that Palpatine had interacted with in his past in that big like 2-page spread.
Yeah.
And just begs for like a Palpatine treatment in terms of a prestige show or something where it's like, we need to know like what he was doing before.
And I scoured those because I was looking for some Plagueis references. Like a Higo Damask like would have been cool. Or
but that's a great pull.
It's very vague. It's just a lot of.
But even his family is not necessarily in there. It's just like random people.
Maybe they are in there though. It's kind of like that's what I was trying to clean. I was like,
they're nameless, right? They're not. I mean, not nameless in terms of the nameless, but they don't do this. So here's the thing: is just like Sewell does something that Sewell does best, which is like they get this thing, and they're gonna hit the button. And I'm like, well, you can't have Luke hit this button. You can't have Luke hit this. You do this. And so you just have this moment, just like as I'm reading it, going, well, how are you going to deal? Because clearly this is going to lead to an ethical dilemma. And as they're like starting to have this debate, they're having like 2 words into the debate, and then Chewie just reaches over and hits the button. And it's like such a great moment. And then Chewie has a monologue.
And then C-3PO translates. Which is so much fun. Yeah. And he's like, he's, plagued our planet for 20 years and killed my family and killed all my friends.
Well, no, has the side of like, I haven't seen my wife and daughter in 2 years and they could be dead for all I know. And it's just this amazing, or wife and son. And it's just an amazing moment.
Yeah, I haven't seen my family. I haven't seen my wife.
Could be the best Chewie moment in this whole arc, in this whole like series, like 50 episode series. He's just like, you said this will kill Palpatine. I want to kill Palpatine.
Click.
Like,
kill Palpatine.
And there was
no decision, no debate, no choice. It's the same Chewie that shoots Ben Solo. Yeah, right. Sure. Like that's the same Chewie, which I like that Chewie.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. There's the art too. There's a couple like really subtle panels. So in this scene, it's it's just like three things. It's like his huge paw grabs the vial of blood. The second one though, his thumb like flips off the top of the blood container, just like boom, like a thing of Tic Tacs, and then he's just like boom,
drip.
and it goes, just like bang, bang, bang. He's like, that's how this is gonna work. It was just really subtle and funny and fun. One other panel, just to go back a second, is I think they were talking about that archivist, and they just showed her at her desk, as like Lando, I think, is walking away from her, and then then there's this one panel that goes tight on her face, and it's just the slightest smile. Just the slightest smile. Just like, F that guy. He'll think I would be burned. Like, and it was just like really nuanced and really subtle for a comic, and I just thought it was super. Anyways,
that's a great.
And then and then the fun twist is basically, which you both alluded to when you're talking about this, is basically this thing, whatever it does, is kind of stretches out and starts feeling connections. And anytime it connects to someone who connected with it, it kind of like follows that step back till it finds the person. So it's kind of moving through connections. And then what we find out at the end is basically it creates a network from people to people to people to people to its target. Once it hits a target, it feeds back and kills all the people that it touched to get there.
Yeah.
And so they have this debate. They basically have the debate, the debate of like, well, what if it kills 100 people? What if it kills 1,000 people? Like, it's still like, it's still nothing compared to what the Death Star did, right? Like, it's a good debate. It's a good debate for the rebels to have, right? Like, and
I think it's a no-brainer. It's just like you can't. I mean, it's a horror movie, right? Or a monkey paw. Like, you just you can't kill. Like, and they're like, so it kills 100 people. That's fine. And then they're like, no. It's like everyone he's ever interacted with. It's like even us. It's like, how many people have we interacted with in our lifetimes? I mean, it's. It's thousands, it's tens of thousands. And then Palpatine at the center of it all. But all they can think about is like, well, it might kill Vader too, and you kill this Sith in one run. But it's like, dude, you would be, that would be the worst act of terrorism in the galaxy since the Nihil. It'd probably kill more people than all the Nihil combined. Like, it's you can't do it. So what, he just like sticks a lightsaber in it to like stop it for a second or something, and then they end up like going back, getting some dead remains and stopping the box.
Basically they found someone who couldn't possibly have any connections left,
right? Because they were so old. Back to the Gazian. He went to the Gazian body pile.
Right.
And had to fight through it. As it was, so, but a fun thought experiment, and and then like, how did it end? I mean, like, then they're just like, let's go get Han.
Well, then Luke,
that's kind of it.
Messages this more of the story is don't use the dark side to take out the dark side, because you're just get part of the problem at that point, or your moral philosophy, you're sort of you're responsible for. Horrendous, activity, horrendous crimes.
Ben Solo takes to heart. It may take however many years, but he uses that lesson at the end of Rise of Skywalker, right? Like, he goes back to light, and he uses the light side to save Rey, help Rey, and yada yada yada, right? Like, so it's nice. There's a little consistency there. There's one of the last lessons pans out.
Yeah, I do like that Luke mentioned Palpatine's laugh in this issue. I felt like that was for me. Because I just don't know how Luke doesn't have nightmares of Palpatine shocking him and laughing like endlessly.
The trauma of that interaction is like,
oh my goodness, and a trauma so deep that his father turns in that moment. It's just like, this is too much. Too dark. Like, we're stopping this.
You talk about that moment a lot, Grant, offline, and you're so right.
To me, it's like, I don't know. If Palpatine was to return, you'd think Luke would sense it over time and space, given that encounter, that connection, that fear, that foreboding, moment of horror. I think it's just so powerful, and he kind of mentions that in this issue, and I was just like, that is. To me, that's what Luke would think about all the time. He'd be like, "Remember that time I got shocked like endlessly and almost died?"
Right.
Like, that's just such a moment for him.
Well, I mean, there is in canon he wasn't using the Force at all, so you might have been right. He probably would have felt the Palpatine quote unquote return, whatever that means. And I say that because we don't know. He just somehow is still the only explanation.
Somehow.
I'm hoping sometime we find out what the somehow is. I think that would be fun. And maybe that's where they're kind of going. I don't know. We don't know much about Palpatine, but they usually talk about Palpatine in the Vader series. So, and I don't know if that Vader series is continuing on. Adam, is it?
Well, we have 50.
It's not. Right? 50's coming out probably in the next week or two.
But is it going to go past? I mean, no, because Vader's dead. So that's it.
There are 0 after Vader's gone. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Oh, is this the last issue of Darth Vader main run when you think about it?
Yeah, it is. It's got to be. They can't continue on.
Yeah.
They could tell. I mean, they could go back and backfill certain things, but they've done quite a bit of his story at this point. Yeah. So no, like this kind of looking ahead is like there are no more ongoing comic series. They're like long form where you got like the High Republic coming, but those are 12 issues, 12 issues, and it's gone, right? The new thing that they're focusing in on, and it's right at the end of this is, similar to what we did before. We're going to jump ahead to post episode 6, as you mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, Ben. They're going to do the Battle of Jakku, and they're going to do that in I think 3 issue arcs.
That sounds right. Yes,
the number. Yeah, it's a trilogy.
It's coming out soon. October 2nd, I think, is
October.
The first.
October, we're getting the first one. It's the first trilogy. The first.
These are actually very exciting.
Rising.
I am very excited about these. These are basically like the aftermath, almost adjacent comic series.
Right.
I cannot read this with you guys.
Right. Aftermath really didn't touch the big 3. I think we talked about this the last time we talked about the comics, but that's the difference, right? Aftermath is a lot of B characters, Mon Mothma, Wedge Antilles, a whole new cast of Temmin Wexley.
With nearly the other way I think of it is like nearly a decade now of storytelling. Yeah. Because when did 2015, 2006, like we're almost a decade. Like so they've had enough of the comics. They've had hundreds of issues. They've had other stuff like that. I think they're ready to start telling these stories now, and which is exciting. The question I had, because there's a lot there, and the question I have is, so we talked about this is really the return of the big 3. We haven't had Han in comic book form,
right?
In a long time,
right? In 50 episodes, 50 issues, really.
Like, do you have so we're gonna get our first really in-depth storytelling of Luke, Leia, and Han post episode 6. Yeah. That's not the sequel trilogy, like pretty close to it. This is the first time we've had some books right here or there, but this is kind of it. Of the 3, who are you most excited to kind of like see their story told? Like who are you most excited about seeing?
We do have that Shattered Empire series comic by Rucka.
But it's a.
But that's
right.
But
it's a 6 issue, right?
Is this another comic coming out?
No,
is this one that already did?
No, that was like, but also
it's just a post episode 6.
It's almost immediately post episode 6. It is canon, but it was also one of the first things that
it kind of introduces Poe's parents, right? If I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Keep talking.
And the Imperial sort of sentry bots, sentinel bots, or whatever, robot droids that Palpatine has, the red clad sort of droids. It like introduces those. Yeah. Messenger droids, those ones.
I think.
Yeah.
Nice. I think they may. I'm wondering. I think there'll be a time jump, right? Because the Battle of Jakku is like a year after, so I'm just
correct.
Wondering like how thorough they're gonna be here.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Adam, I'm excited for Han and Leia and that sort of stuff, but to me, it's like I really want to know what Luke is doing in and around the actual final battles of the Remnant Empire with the Remnant Empire, and then sort of how he transitions into becoming like a full-time explorer and and his relationship with the New Republic. To me, people's relationships with the New Republic are actually extraordinarily compelling to me. I think there's so much you could do with that. Like Mando and Grogu are about to go work for the New Republic. I would love if Boba Fett has a deal with the New Republic and sort of gets burned and then turns on them and sort of becomes a villain again. To me, there's so much Lucasfilm could do with that. If the New Republic doesn't have time for people in the Outer Rim and they're making all the bureaucratic errors that sort of other governments had made in the past in terms of not fully supporting all the planets and throughout the galaxy. You just don't have the resources to reach certain worlds and provide backup when Boba Fett needs it or something. You get Boba Fett as a villain again. There's so much you could do. And then I want to see what Luke's relationship with the New Republic is going to be. I'm just dying to see some sort of like courting of Luke and, some military courting of Luke. That's actually what I want to see most is sort of like, how does the New Republic military court Luke to be a sort of Vader enforcer for them? Because I just would have to think that someone up the chain wants that. You know what I mean? Like, and to me, that's a huge area of the story that's super interesting to me, and sort of like something I thought was going to be in the sequels, honestly, where I was just like,
it's a story that needs to be told. Because you can also use that to reinforce why Luke is the way he is in the sequel trilogies. Because if you tell the stories of he feels like he's being used, right? Like feels like he's being
honestly,
used
it enhances
his will,
greatly enhances.
It does.
He is.
It explains why he's on an island, right? He feels like he's being used as a weapon or a threat.
Yes, you're right. It's gonna be fascinating. I mean, that's also my answer. Like, gut reaction was that. I'll say Leia as well in a minute, but just to piggyback, I mean, I think out of hand, he'd have to just be like, absolutely not. Like, he's like everything he knows about his father. I mean, if he really knows what happened in the Clone Wars, it's like, no, it's like the Jedi. That's not the Jedi's role. That's not at all the Jedi's role. In fact, this is what got us in this position in the first place was, the Jedi were put in this position of.
That's fascinating to me. Like,
it is. I kind of hope he struggles with it a little bit, because I feel like if you watch him in 4, 5, and 6, he is hopping in X-wings, flying with battalions, blowing up Death Stars. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he is raring to go. And so, but I think you're right. He's learned a lot. So it'll be interesting if you have this, like, both sides of his psyche kind of battling us out of, like, do I want to be this, like, shining Jedi Knight that's the head of this organization, that is the head of the saber of the,
but there's also that moral philosophy
Republic, or am I
examination too, where it's like, how many rebel officers and rebel soldiers is he saving when he takes out, like, phase 3 dark troopers that are like attacking them? You know what I mean? Like, and that, like, to me, it's like there's that inaction thing that he might be thinking about quite a bit, where he's like, if I don't act, these people are going to die. It would also explain a lot of inaction that happens during the sequel trilogy too, where it's sort of like, when is Luke inactive in terms of solving certain conflicts that lead to countless dead, and could he have made a huge difference? And sort of him thinking about that could be really interesting as well.
To answer my own question, I'm actually with Han, and the reason why, and this is like comes back to my old EU moments, is that like this is gonna be very reductive, but when I think back to like when I first started reading EU stuff, I was just like, well, okay, so I already assume I know where like Luke and Leia are gonna land. Like, Leia is gonna be the leader of the New Republic, like before it was called New Republic. Like, that was just my like thought. And then Luke's gonna be a Jedi Knight, right? Forming Jedi Knight. And I'm like, where's Han fall? Like, where's Han fall in all this? Because like, Han is not a general. He's not really part of the military, but he's now married to, or at least engaged with, the new leader of the Republic. Like, it's just
married,
like
they get married on,
like his
the
Princess Galactic Star Cruiser.
Right, I forget the name of that.
Princess and the Scoundrel.
Princess and the Scoundrel. Thank you. Yes.
But like, that's like one of my favorite characters. Is like, how do you square this circle? Right, like, how does this person fit into this organization? And I think in the old EU is kind of the stuff I appreciated the most, because basically he would try to like be part of the thing, and then he would get frustrated with bureaucracy, and he and Chewie would run off for like 6 months to go do stuff, and Leia would be like, fine, he needs to go out and do his own thing, but I need him back here.
I just honestly don't understand it, but I know that's been happening, right? Like, he does have to go off and do, I don't know, races. Like, he does like he eventually hosts like a big
well, that's
Starship
new
race.
EU. Old EU, he was still kind of smuggling on the side, which I appreciate.
Oh, okay. Old EU.
And from where we see him in Force Awakens, it's like he may have done a bunch of virtuous things at the beginning, but it's like he always had a
I think you have to see that corrupting of the bureaucracy of the New Republic, because I think you have to see all of the three sort of get I don't know, the sort of cynical of it. Yeah.
I'll say Leia, just for the sake of argument. Now Leia knows that she has a connection to the Force,
Right. Yep.
a Jedi to your connection to the Force, and how does she reconcile that, and what does she do with it, and does she feel an obligation to go learn? I mean, we know we've heard like flashback things from like Bloodlines where she was like, yeah, it was a tough time and I didn't really know what to do. We know from the Rise of Skywalker that she did train for a long time with Luke, so we might see some of that. And then how does she balance that with her political responsibilities
I think
to the galaxy?
Such an important story, and I feel like in the old EU, not that I'm like old EU is better, because boy is it not, but the old EU really did deal with that quite a bit, of just like being pulled in two different directions. I like the way they would do that. Now they had books and books and stuff to tell. The hand wavy stuff that happens in episode 9 might be the least favorite thing that happens in episode 9 for me, of just like, she had a vision, and because of the vision she never picked up the saber again. I'm like, no, but I get it, because you just decided to introduce this 9 movies into a 9 movie saga. You don't have the runway to show her have that struggle of, I almost would prefer this. It's not that I had a vision, it's that I couldn't do both things effectively. I couldn't become a Jedi Knight and be a leader because I couldn't take time off. I sacrificed my Jedi training.
Right.
I made a conscious decision not to follow that path in my life because this path seemed more important.
Yeah.
That to me gives her agency and feels more interesting of a story to me than like, no, I had a vision, I couldn't do it.
See, I totally agree, Adam. I'm just going to say this is one sentence, Grant, and then you can go. It's just very Greek myth. It's like very like,
it is.
Yes,
very
but then
much.
this super powerful person had this vision of how everything was going to play out, and it completely altered her trajectory, and that's it. That's just it.
It is. It does fit into. Right. I mean, a story of visions, right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's some threads that are actually super interesting to me, like sort of Leia's sort of determination to be involved in politics versus Luke's sort of like determination or desire to be outside of politics, and sort of like exploring that duality, right? Like Leia wants to get involved, wants to make a difference politically, and Luke doesn't want that. He wants to be on the outside. He wants to explore the Jedi, the past of the Jedi, and then he wants to explore, his own methodology about how he's going to go about, starting a new temple. And he wants to be with, outside of the political sphere, where she wants to be very active within that. And it's like, to me, and like, it's sort of something they could have mined in the sequel trilogy, in that like, I'm here fighting the good fight and you're in isolation, and let's bump heads a little bit about that, and let's bring this to a catharsis, in that maybe neither of us are right, but nonetheless we need to come together and we're stronger together. Maybe that's some sort of something, but you do feel that you do get a sense of them being back together is very, very, very important. But that whole thing, but then to what you're saying, I would love if Leia goes off and trains, and it feels like this away mission with Luke, and then when she gets back to the New Republic, maybe like the corruption has set in or creeped in a little bit more, and she's like, I need to put on my diplomat, attire.
I can't leave this alone. The second I leave it alone, it starts going to rot.
Being a Jedi is not doing as much as what I could do politically as a senator, and not just a senator, but she gets elevated to some other position, I believe, role. She's a dignitary of some kind in Bloodlines, but like just something. I just feel like that's really important to explore that too. Of like, being a Jedi isn't as impactful as being a voice in the Senate. So yeah, I'm excited to see Leia as well. So yeah, and Leia training and all this stuff they could do with Leia and Force powers, and sort of that starting, right? Like the sort of like the Force powers beginning, and then how she utilizes them to start. And in Rise of Skywalker, I think she bests Luke. Like, she seems to be the more adept Jedi Knight, Jedi character. It's like, I want to see that start. I want to see the comics really take hold of that idea that, like, if she embraced the Jedi path, she would probably be a far superior Jedi to Luke in terms of like combat prowess, as we see in Rise of Skywalker, but also like, who knows, Force power, just the her grip of the Force just feels like maybe slightly higher than Luke's.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited about how short this series is planned for. And because like it's going to be really exciting, but it's such fertile ground. This is stuff like I could just watch the buddy comedy of Lore Santeca and Luke Skywalker forever. I would love for them to make an animated series out of that. Just going around the galaxy, seeing wild things, like, would be so great. Just chasing down artifacts.
Yeah, I agree.
And learning about the Force, the nature of the Force. Like, I could watch that forever.
Agreed.
And there's a lot of good things in there that could run in parallel with, but also Palpatine, right? Learning about
and Lando.
Operation
I want to know how Lando ends up in
Lando,
that tread.
Right.
Right.
Right. What does Lando do after? I mean, we know like he's
Right.
he's usually partnering with Han and his exploits, but I kind of forget what like Lando has. Like he tries to reconnect. Well, I think he has a daughter, right? So he makes a connection with someone. He has a daughter.
Gets stolen or kidnapped.
Yeah. So that stuff might be going down. And like he's what is the next move for him? Is he going to build another business? Who knows?
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention, so just this is a little like behind the scenes or whatever. So each series is 4 issues. It's so funny. They only show you the covers of the first 3 of Insurgency Rising, but it's a 4-issue miniseries. That's why I stopped for. I'm like, I thought it was 4. Why are they showing us 3? And I was also just like, well, that gives them a year of runway. It takes a year to tell the story.
Yeah.
No, these comics are coming out weekly and bi-weekly.
Huh.
So they're going to actually get through this whole thing by I think February of next year.
Wild.
So they're going to tell these 12 issues. So it's really interesting. We're not
what's
going to
the
have
rush?
to sit here and wait.
Right.
I don't know, but I'm
I
happy
love that
about not having to
question.
wait a month between.
Yeah.
So, because I thought maybe they're doing this because it gives them a year to figure out what are we going to do. Are we going to keep doing a continuing series? But they got to have something on the burner. I mean, if we're talking about February, they've got to have a pretty good game plan for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
One
stuff.
word: Snoke.
Snoke.
I hope we do see some more of that. We're the only ones that know that Snoke is a Strand class cast of Luke.
Right.
Just the comic book fans know that.
Yeah.
But it's
Through
it's
a single
big.
panel, and I think Darth Vader, right? Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Luke hand in a jar.
In Exegol. Yeah.
Come
Well,
on.
we don't
In
know if it
Right,
was,
yeah.
but it's pretty much.
We know.
No, we know. No, and I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but but I will safely jump to that conclusion because it just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We've been very positive about episode 50, but I need to bring a negative comment to this thread. Very serious oversight.
Dark Side Corner.
Extremely serious oversight. Well, it's funny you say Dark Side Corner. It's not that, but it is a corner that we have very often, and it is glaringly omitted here.
Oh, I see where you're going. Go for it. I know you're. That is a bummer for you.
Oh, the green lightsaber.
How Luke?
Crystal.
Yeah, we don't.
How or why Luke changes over
Right?
to the green lightsaber?
Well, he builds it in the cave on Tatooine. So,
All right,
that,
so
we got to give him that.
Yeah. So for the super nerds will know that it was a deleted scene from Return of the Jedi.
Right.
They showed him putting together his green lightsaber inside the cave, just outside of Jabba's palace on Tatooine. Like minutes before he goes in, he builds a lightsaber, pops it in, the dome of R2D2, and then goes to save Han. But why?
The deleted scenes are also not canon. Let's just say.
Yeah,
right now.
they're not.
Right,
So they don't
not
have to
canon.
honor those. They could have done something else, and they just didn't. And I mean, I get the whole they wanted to. It's much more there's no reason for him to explain to Ben Solo why he switched over to his green lightsaber. But why the yellow lightsaber?
Right.
Where does it go? And why
If
does
the
he
yellow
make another one?
lightsaber was green,
Yeah,
everything
I mean,
would
so-
click, essentially. But there's a yellow lightsaber featured throughout these tales, and not just this issue, but
Would you like to hear the?
I love the yellow
canon-
lightsaber decision, by the way. Though
Me
the
too.
fact
It's
they
cool.
did it out of nowhere is just so great.
Well, no, I mean, my favorite thing is not that they did it out of nowhere, but they did it because of a toy that came out in 1980.
Oh my gosh!
Right.
all right.
Yeah, because you could pre-order before Return of the Jedi came out. You could get toys, and you got a Luke Skywalker, the original Luke Skywalker
Right,
for the
with
Return
the
of the Jedi
yellow
was Luke
lightsaber.
Skywalker with the yellow lightsaber, because they didn't. I think green was kind of last minute, and they also didn't want to give away the green surprise. So that's like literally like now, how do we make the toy canon?
Right.
There's a lot of that in comics. Let's
I know,
make this
it is.
old Marvel
Yeah.
reference and old
So,
toy.
I love that, and
Yeah,
I think it's
so
great.
many. Do you want me to read you the canon story of Luke's green lightsaber?
Please.
From Wikipedia.
Sure.
Skywalker constructed his own lightsaber after losing his father's in a duel with the Sith Lord Darth Vader. He used it to kill Jabba. That is it. That's wild. That's wild. That canon. That is it. He built it after killing, after losing. Basically, that's like he built it sometime between the end of Episode 5 and the beginning of Episode 6.
Yeah.
So like it's wild that they haven't told that story in anything.
It'd be crazy if it
anywhere.
was like a crystal that was, splintered off of the crystal that was in the DS1, like, that fired the laser. Like, it must have been a green kyber crystal or something in there, right? It's a green laser, essentially.
Well, in this arc, we did see him. There was a great lightsaber arc where he was messing with kyber crystals, and he cleansed a red one, and it turned white. And I think didn't someone just hand him a green one?
Yeah, he goes to Christophsis and meets that, like, kyber crystal expert.
Yeah.
I forget his name. But, yeah.
Right, and then I think he just like he's like, here, have a green crystal or something, or
Yeah, and that guy
was
has
like
a million crystals. I think he does give him a green crystal in that issue.
yeah, but it like called to him or something, blah blah blah. So it's like it's probably that one, but it like it
That's
could
probably
be my headcanon was always he went back to Ben's hut and found Qui-Gon's lightsaber there and used Qui-Gon's crystal
Like that.
to make his. Or but it could be the Death Star, the Death Star 1 crystal would be an amazing thing. There's like
so many
all these...
cool ways you could have done it.
Can I? Okay. Oh, this is gonna drive me nuts. So can I?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm like updating this. So Dr. Quata is who we're referring to.
Yeah.
He gave Luke a blank crystal, a white crystal. After remember after he had the vision of Yoda, then it turned green.
That's right.
Oh,
He
okay.
does. Yeah, so he
So
does create
once
it.
again, this is why Ahsoka should have been able to make her lightsabers turn colors in Ahsoka when she became a Jedi Knight again.
Right.
Anyway, pet peeve of that show. Hate that. It should have been. She should have turned them on, because apparently the comics have now proven that it's just as you can bleed a lightsaber, you can also imbue it with color.
I have kind of a hot take on all that stuff where I just don't like the color changing.
No,
saber.
it's
That's just
wild.
me.
Yeah,
I
I'm also with you on that, Grant. But I'm like, if you're gonna do it, let's do it.
The way they
Yeah.
did it, I thought was pretty artful. I think bleeding crystals red makes a lot of sense, and that's very cool. And also, saving red crystals just makes them white. It's like you found peace. It's sort of like Gandalf in the, in the lands beyond the sea, whatever. I don't know. It's just like this evolution, and you just white, and that's it. It's like an apotheosis for crystals. But it could be trauma as well. It's just like, I'm out of commission. I'm white. This is the way it's going. I don't hate it. I see where you guys are saying.
I
but
don't.
it's like,
I don't. I
think
don't
they
hate
were,
it. But I don't.
Yeah.
That's
at least it
strong.
wasn't
Just
willy
like,
nilly.
It doesn't.
It's just. I like it more of a.
It didn't
sci-fi
connect with
element.
my.
Yeah.
It didn't connect with my headcanon, which is fine, right? Like I can.
It's totally.
That's my headcanon.
If by
It's my
fine
headcanon,
you
it's
mean
not anyone
it's
else's.
fine. It's fine.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Like it's like
fine.
it's all like
I-
we're dealing with the kyber crystal story. Let's change the color of the crystal. Like that's a big part of the story, and it's like I almost wish they're focused on like maybe the crystals have voices, or the crystals like are like calling to people, like we're talking about. Like it's almost a whole other aspect that I think is more interesting than just them changing color, like mood ring crystals. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, do you
But
want?
I mean,
do you
Luke
want
is
more?
always there's an asterisk on him because he's super powerful and he's a very important figure. And yeah, because I think he was very surprised that he was able to turn that crystal from white to green. He's like Luke's kind of an anomaly.
It was cool. I did like that. I love that Doctor.
I liked it. I liked it in the comic. Can I? All right. So I'm now like I'm listening to you. I swear to God, I'm listening to you both.
No, I love that you're
but I'm
doing
also
research.
like I'm now in a deep hole. So they have now officially retconned the fact that Luke. What we do know, we don't know when Luke built the green lightsaber. We know that he got the green crystal from Dr. Quata, or from got the blank, then filled it. But we do know that he built the lightsaber before being on Tatooine, because of, remember the Age of Rebellion standalone comics that came out featuring different characters.
Yes.
So there's like the standalone
gosh,
Luke
yes.
Skywalker. He has the green lightsaber in that when he actually takes out a bunch of KK droids or whatever those are, and it's technically before he goes to Tatooine.
Okay.
So like
right, so those comics
the
actually
deleted
apply
scene.
Return of the
Deleted
Jedi
scene, yeah.
because
But we still don't know, right? But we still don't know
Yeah.
when he built it. We just know it's not in the cave anymore, unless he went to Also, with the way the comics work, he could have gone to the,
I think in that
thing on
issue you're
Tatooine,
talking
built
about,
it, flew off, did that, and come back.
I think in that issue he does build it in the cave. I'm just trying to think back to that issue, but
I
not
don't.
built it in the cave, but just I think he builds it. I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. It's also important that like the actual design of the lightsaber is Ben Kenobi's design exactly, like Episode 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's like design, like
It's like
Mark's
Obi-Wan's
like,
hilt and Yoda's blade color, so it's like his
Exactly.
two masters essentially.
Yeah,
It's
which
very
makes so
cool.
much sense, and it's there, and like we can glean why he did it. But it's just like, if you have a perfectly good yellow lightsaber that served you so well, why are you making this?
I love that
change?
hilt too for that yellow lightsaber. It's
Yeah.
like the sweet.
High Republic
but-
steez. It's nice.
It's very cool. So also Leia goes to get the Bosch Leia suit and all that stuff in the Age of Rebellion.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yes,
after these
that's
comics,
correct.
essentially.
Well, she had the Bosch Leia suit. They established that way
is.
early in this arc. That was like the first episode. I think she stole the suit, and used it.
Oh, okay.
Oh gosh, remember what was her name? Tag, Domina Tag.
Yeah,
So
Dominic
that
Tag,
all that
yeah.
stuff happened too, by the way.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. yeah,
But yeah, there was all
I like
the
Dominic Tag. I really like that character a lot. I like corporate entities in Star Wars
Yeah.
and sort of expanding that stuff.
Yeah.
Again, Andor did such a good job with that. As
yeah,
well.
all the tags are fun. Yeah, but yeah, so they
Except-
had
except for General
established that. They established the outfit that the guard outfit that Lando uses. I mean, they established that in Solo, really, but they pulled it out of the Falcon to do another mission, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
So they're like, that stuff's already there, but the darn lightsaber.
Yeah.
They didn't, of all the things to answer, they just didn't answer that one.
No. Never. Again, weird. We'll get in the Mandalorian and Grogu when there's a flashback scene featuring Luke building his lightsaber. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe
So
there's
that'll be
something-
the Book of Boba Fett season 2. Sorry.
Oh, you just
Sure.
reminded me, Grant. Sorry, this was a comment. First of all, you just like offhandedly were like, what if Boba Fett got tied back in at this stage?
Oh my God, I've been thinking about it for like weeks now.
Dude,
Yeah.
but think about the poetry that like his dad was responsible for the clone army, and then for the New Republic, like Boba Fett could be responsible for, like, I know you said he turns bad and it goes bad, and maybe that's cool, love that.
No, I'm not at all. No. It was just a idea.
But what if
It was-
Boba Fett, his son, like trained up the like new Republic Corps or something, or was a
That'd be
general
cool. I would
for
like
like
that.
their like spec ops, like infantry, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sort of held a mirror image
So he's sort of a
position,
broad. Yeah.
like for the
But this
New
has to be,
Republic
like-
as opposed to the
he's
old
kind of
Republic.
revered heroic character at that point.
Yeah.
But this would have to be.
But did a
post-
job
this-
like Django did for the Separatists. He's gonna do it for
Right.
the New
Right.
Alliance.
But just in the light, right?
But
Yeah.
this is all wonderful. But how is that possible with the Book of Boba Fett
well,
telling us that he
it would
was
happen to have to happen post Book of Boba Fett. So 9 years
post,
later.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really
Because
want it
he's
to be really
apparently
bad.
been digested for like 9 years or something. I don't want.
Well, I think.
Wait, so you
No,
want?
Oh, I
to
forget. He has a different time.
No, he's with the Sand People for quite a while, right? Like
So
I think
you want-
that's.
Yeah.
That's
You
all
want him to
weird.
keep trending heroic, Ben? Is that what you're saying?
Dude, I don't
'Cause
care.
To me, it's like he's such a better character if he gets to
Yeah.
be grizzled.
I just
and
want
dark.
him to do something. I don't want him to sit on his laurels as a daimyo in some backwater flyover Tatooine nothing city. You know what I
They
mean?
need to come back and they need to have everything. He needs to go out, come back, everything's destroyed, and he's just like, well, I'm gonna go just be a bounty hunter again because I'm bad at being a leader. like I'm just gonna go wreck
I
shop.
would love to see, or him pass it on. If you want to like poor Mos Espa to thrive, like he passes it on, and turns out Black Chrysanthemum is an amazing civic leader. Like, I don't care. Like, whatever you want to do with that. But I would love to see more Boba Fett. But what you're saying would be a very poetic sort of, like, maybe that sort of helps save the Republic in some way, the New Republic, and bring some more to the galaxy. Or, he performed... Actually, you know what it could be is, like, we need to go up against Thrawn's, army of zombies. Yeah. Well, who are we going to get to help train us up? And, like, Mando's like, I got a guy. And Boba comes in to help train some elite force. Or he's a general in a Mandalorian army. They didn't have enough of those. So, I don't know. There's something there. There's something there.
I mean...
That's exciting. But, I mean... It's not just Boba Fett flies in and then shoots all his rockets and, like, blows people away. Like, a little more depth to his character and some sort of poetics.
I like the idea of, like, something passing Tatooine and it's, like, getting harried by pirates, right? There's, like, lots of pirates that's sailing some sort of New Republic vessel. And then, Daimyo Boba Fett gets involved with Fennec and all his, mods that roll with him and his crew, and sort of like help defend the thing. But then, like, when they, when it comes down to the final battle between whatever the threat is, like a New Republic officer like shuts the door on them or something, and it's just like, nah, like I'm gonna survive, and you guys are just. You're helping me, but I'm not going to, like, the backup's not coming.
You're pirates.
We matter more. You're part of the sort of pirate culture that's out here. You're part of the Outer Rim sort of fringer culture that's out here. I'm from the core. I thought that would kind of happen, and then it throws Boba Fett on the other side of the field again as a sort of like disenfranchised bounty hunter or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want him with a chip on his shoulder, not being a daimyo. Like, I want him. I want to be his dad, just a man trying to make his way through the galaxy.
Me too.
That's all I ever
Desperately.
wanted. I will say that based on how Tamara Morrison's talking currently or recently when he's been at conventions doesn't sound very likely.
Right.
Well, the funniest thing too is that, like, Darth Vader, like
I
the evil of the evil, is like no disintegrations to him, because he is even morally, more bankrupt than Darth Vader. And I was just like, how does this character, how is, like, pretty much one of the darkest characters in all of Star Wars, become as heroic as he is in modern Star Wars? And it's just, to me, it's like, if Darth Vader has to tell him to not use disintegrations, it's this guy's a bad apple. This guy is dangerous.
The simple answer is everyone's obsessed with the hero's journey in Star Wars. That everyone has to go through the hero's journey. As opposed to there are other journeys.
Right. Make Boba Fett dangerous again.
Oh God!
Nothing.
Make again, please.
Please,
we can kill that phraseology forever.
Yeah,
I don't know where I heard it from. I just came up with it myself.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, your choice of words was good. It could have taken a wrong turn.
No, I know what you mean. We're just turning left on this podcast. Always left.
Always left.
Yeah.
Lovely, man. This was really fun. Great run. Always love talking about this Star Wars main run. It's real. It's just as wacky and wild as it is. It just feels real. It's written perfectly all the time. All the writers who have worked on this have done such a great job, and it's a blast, man. It's a blast.
It always makes me think a lot about Star Wars, which is the thing I love the most, right? Like, I just love them. Like, it's making me consider everything.
Because it's always the big characters. It's always the main people doing it, and they're written just like, oh yeah, they would totally do these things in these situations. Like, love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crushed
it. Thanks very much for listening to us this week, guys. We love it. We love that you're here listening to us. And next week we will be talking about Star Wars again. Not sure in what capacity, but it's going to be awesome. But
figure it out.
Raise a glass to James Earl Jones and to yourself. And we will do it again next week on
Cantina Chronicles.